in to Trust the Process Live. It is a week full of dancing. I don't know about you guys, but I've been dancing on my own to the beat of my own drum with NCAA March Madness in full swing. It's been probably the craziest first week of the tournament to date. This is like the craziest bracket that I've ever seen. I mentioned to you guys how I had the Drexel Dragons, not my Drexel Dragons, but the Drexel Dragons.
Our Drexel
Dragons. Our. You know what? The city's Drexel Dragons as the championships in our gut pool, straight from the gut. I'll tell you what, the rest of that bracket looks absolutely fantastic, but the champs are no longer the champs. The champs can't be champ cheese anymore. They're not around. So, but as always, I'm your host James Hyden here with my guys Doc Lock, Josh Saffron. How are you, friend?
Oh man, I mean, you alluded to it. The bracket that's been my entire life this past weekend. I will say bracket busted. Computer monitor also busted. So aside from those two things, not much to complain about. But I'm doing this show on a TV.
Are you one of those guys that like when the bracket's busted, you threw something at the TV? Like, was that a TV and a phone going down?
No, are you kidding me? If it was like Temple in it, maybe I'm throwing something. But cooler heads prevail when it comes to March.
No, you're a better man than me. But we're gonna move over to our other guy, YG, the young gentleman himself, James Jackson. My guy, how are you?
I'm doing good. I got one bracket still clinging on for dear life, about fourth in the pool. The other two brackets have gone to hell, but there is a silver lining about a bracket being busted. It's like when your team is out of playoff contention. Like it's stress-free watching. You just enjoy the tournament for what it is. But if there was a year where brackets had to be busted and I no longer am rooting for a champion because of my pool, at least my Nova Wildcats are still in it. Sweet 16 bound.
Your Nova Wildcats. All right. I'll let you have that one. I'll give you that one. That's fine.
Okay.
The man with digits in his name. We moved him up a 10 because that's how important he is. The man of 10 digits, Max Coolish. How are you?
I'm good. Good to be back. Good to be back after last week's last-minute technical difficulties.
Yeah.
That was fun. That was really fun.
We missed you, brother.
Amen.
We missed you.
Technology is a gift and a curse sometimes, but we're going to make it a gift today because we are on the air, and we're going to move right into our main event. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you how you can find us if you're not watching live, because you can find us on all major podcast platforms, whether that be Anchor. I found another one called Tuner. Yeah, I think we're on Tuner. I think it's in that base package with Anchor, so we're probably on there. If we're not, let us know. But Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever, you can find us there. Trust the Process Live. Get with us or don't. I'm not your mom. Whatever. But that's we're going to move right into our main event. And our first question, we're going to stick with some Sixers talk here, boys, because the Birds not doing much. I'm not even sure if we have a team that plays that sport where you have blades on your feet and you're tossing around like a black rock thing on ice.
Let's do that.
No, we don't have a hockey team. I would love to talk baseball, but I get it. I'm the minority. Spring training still happening.
Soon. I mean, you just got to wait like 2 weeks. Then we're back.
I'm impatient. All right, whatever. But we'll get to the baseball talk. We're gonna stick with the Sixers. And the first question. So this one it's gonna be interesting because the Sixers. I'm one of those guys that always finds the happy medium of I'm not sure what to take when some players are sitting out or we're not sure how the opponent plays. But Joel Embiid's is still out with that bone bruise, and thank God we could have been so much worse with how that looked. We could have been missing our big man for the rest of the season with how bad that knee injury did look. But good news is he's feeling better. He's progressing along that injury timeline with that bone bruise in his knee. And Josh, I'm going to come to you first because I think this question is absolutely asinine. But so I want you to tell me why this question made it into the script. All right. Could Embiid's absence? Could Embiid's absence help? And you know what? Just
in what world?
Yeah,
in
just
what world?
Shut me up and take it away. I don't. Whatever.
In what world?
Wait, why? First of all, yes, and this team is only going as far as Joel will take them. There's no doubt about that. But why are we acting like this is so ridiculous? I mean, taking Embiid out of the equation is forcing every single other guy on this team to step up. And I was the one who was saying, I don't think these guys are going to step up. Seeing that win against the Kings, that one actually really sticks out in my mind because not only is 1A not there in Embiid, 1B wasn't there either with Ben Simmons. And I've made it clear how I feel about the Kings. Maybe I do overvalue the Kings. I think they're a solid team, and I'm very scared of them. They absolutely took care of business against the Kings without Simmons, without Embiid. And I'm seeing everybody on this team play a little better. So when Embiid does come back, all these guys have their sea legs underneath them. The Furkan, he's had a great year, but he'll go hot, he'll go cold. You got guys.
Don't you Furkan me.
Oh, I'm gonna Furkan you all up and down this final stretch of the season.
As noted Furkan defender on the show, he's been playing well lately.
Whatever.
Well, my point is this. My point is guys like Furkan who have been streaky, guys like Matisse who we've been saying so long, oh, if he could only get the offense, he's not setting the world on fire offensively, but he's getting more reps. When you have your number one minutes getter, is that a saying? Let's call him your number one minutes getter out of the rotation. There's tons of opportunities for all these guys who have not been getting as many opportunities earlier in the year. So if they're playing cohesive as a unit without their best player and still racking up wins, when he comes back, all these guys are just a little more confident. I think their skills are going to be a little bit shored up, and you're getting hot all around Embiid right in time for the playoffs. I don't understand why this is such an asinine question.
Because at this point of the season, I don't. Kings wins don't stick out to me. We're past the All-Star break and the number one team in the conference. Kings wins don't stick out to me.
But you're number one. But you're number one because of Embiid and Ben Simmons.
I understand that, but Ben Simmons is coming back. But your number one being out at this point of the season, I don't see how it helps. Cool, it gives other guys opportunities to step up. But if you look at the other teams that they're competing against, the Milwaukee Bucks are starting to get it together. The Brooklyn Nets just added Blake Griffin and are now going to soon add Kevin Durant. Like this is a time where playoff seedings get solidified. This is a time where MVP statuses get solidified. So taking Joel Embiid out of the rotation, I don't think it helps. Can the Sixers survive? Probably is a different question. And I think the test that you should be isn't a Kings win, but is maybe this next stretch of games where you got the Warriors, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Bucks. That's the measuring stick of, okay, maybe it could help if I see my players play well. Not the Kings though. Not the Kings.
JJ, I give you that,
but not the Kings.
I'll give you that. And you're right. I may have jumped the gun a little bit because I do want to say it's hard to say until we see these next 4 games. If they go 0-4 in these next 4 games,
and they get blown out in all of them, none of this helps. None of this helps.
That's horrible for playoff seeding. But I'm not talking in a linear sense. I'm not talking in a seeding sense. I'm talking about gelling together. I'm talking about chemistry. I'm talking about confidence. And I'm sorry I brought up the Kings win. I might want to bring up that Bucks loss because that's a game that I see that on the schedule. I see an Embiid-less game there. That's a blowout for the Bucks. They hung with the Bucks the entire game, and at the end of the day, yes, on the scoreboard, Giannis sat down, 109, 105, whatever. That game's going to stick in the craw of the 76ers, and next time they play the Bucks down the road with Embiid, it's going to be a completely different story.
I see what you're saying.
So then why does that help if the Sixers would still have the outright 1 seed in the East if Joel Embiid plays?
Well, Banners, to that point, I won't disagree. Yeah, it does hurt in terms of playoff seeding, but in terms of, we talk about going into the playoffs hot, right? You're getting Embiid back with still time left in the regular season, and I think the unit around Embiid is only getting better in his absence. Is that crazy to say?
Matisse was already getting better with Embiid in the lineup.
I don't think it's crazy to say, but I don't know if it's true yet. We've seen a game or two without it, and you're using performances against the Kings as the measuring stick.
What about the Bucks?
But I'm just not sure I'm not sure if we go piece by piece, I'm not sure what we're really talking about because Ben Simmons has been playing this way for probably about a month and a half, 2 months now. Matisse has been shooting well outside of when Joel Embiid was out. He started picking up his offensive play when Joel Embiid was still on the court. Seth Curry's hurt. Danny Green is playing well because he had that week break, which is nothing to do with Joel Embiid. I think if you're the Sixers, you sit Danny Green down for the week before the playoffs and let him go absolutely ballistic. If anything, I think it's actually hurting Tobias Harris because he has games like the one he had last night when he's forced to be the 1A, not even the 1B to Joel Embiid's 1A. And I don't want to risk Tobias Harris losing confidence like he did last night when he missed 4 free throws. Like it's not. If anything, the Joel Embiid's not being on the court hasn't impacted the other guys playing well. Matisse was taking advantage of the minutes. Ben Simmons, what he was. Danny Green, purely because of rest. I'm not seeing, like, if you're going to tell me that Joel Embiid's absence is really only helping Furkan Korkmaz, I'm going to tell you that's a sunk cost. That's just like that's
it is,
like,
though. It is.
What
though.
are we really talking about? Like, if we're really talking about Furkan
credit.
Korkmaz and Mike Scott like negligible improvements in the 7 minutes else that they play, like those two guys are ideally trade pieces in a package to get you bench depth. So what are we really? What's helping? You know what I mean, Max? Am I crazy?
I mean, like I get where Josh is coming from, right? Like there's the undeniable truth that Joel Embiid misses time, and when I first read the script, this was my first thought: is that when was the last time we had a whole postseason run? We only make it past the second round. Embiid doesn't play every game that we play in the postseason. They're going to need to play, presumably. I'm going to guess at least one game every 1.5 playoffs without Embiid. So if that math is correct, you're looking at a conference finals game without Embiid. And in a 7-game series, that can be the difference, right? So I guess, if you're trying to find the silver lining, it's being able to fully experiment with lineups and figuring out who works with what for those times in the playoffs where, Embiid needs that extra 60 seconds of rest, or his calf's tight in his game 3, or it's not a net positive, right? You want your team to learn how to get better at full because that's how you want to win. That's how you plan and prepare to win. You want to continue to grow with your best player in the center of things, right? Because that's how you're going to attain a championship. We're not going to win a title without Embiid and Simmons missing another 30 games in the playoffs or whatever. So obviously it's not like the best way to go about things, but if you're looking for a silver lining, it's that guy, both of these guys have not been 100% available in important games over the last 2 to 3 seasons. And learning how to play without one or both of them is something that you might need to do. And I would rather do it now than on the fly in the playoffs.
Very true.
Just Banners JJ, you're telling me it doesn't give you like any solace, like anything, to see this team pick up some wins, play well without Embiid? Because that's my thing. Like I thought they were going to fall
it completely
apart.
does, but I'm just not attributing that to not having him on the floor. Like that can't be a positive to me.
And giving me solace doesn't mean it's helping.
Right.
Like I can find some solace. Hey, at least they're getting time, but that's a takeaway. That's not the benefit of Embiid being out. I don't think there's an overall, like Max said, it's not a net positive. There's not an overall benefit to Embiid being out. But completely at least we can get X, fine.
Completely agree. So I mentioned bench depth in there, and how in my perfect world, Mike Scott and Furkan Korkmaz were add-ins to a trade package for some bench depth. The trade deadline, gentlemen, is on Thursday, 3 p.m. Thursday. It is about to get crazy because I think it's a well-known fact that the NBA free agency and trade deadlines and buyout markets is probably the highlight of professional sports. The NFL is catching up quickly. But the NBA has kind of set the standard for a couple of years now. I really want to take a look into the buyout market but tonight when I have time. But this is going to be crazy, man. I'll give you a list of names here that have been tossed about with a bunch of teams, and we're not going to give you the big names like the Kyle Lowry, the Bradley Beal. We're not in that business. All right, we're in bench depth here. We're in role player mode. We're
true.
Like nitty gritty. All right. We're going deep dive here. All right. So I'll run this list of names, and Max, I'm going to come to you first, man. Tell me what you think of these, and if you want any of these guys. Evan Fournier, Wayne Ellington, DeLon Wright, George Hill, Doug McBuckets McDermott, and Nemanja Bjelica.
Awesome name. Love Bjelica's name. He's not my answer, though. I got to say, and I think this is kind of a matter of the circumstance around him, I'm interested in Evan Fournier, if I'm being honest here. The Magic are going through it right now, and Aaron Gordon has officially requested a trade. And Fournier has kind of been, I would say this has probably been his worst season as a member of the Magic in terms of his availability and his sheer numbers when he's on the court. I think that he maybe can go for a lower price than maybe this is I'm kind of jaded as a Sixers fan here. I feel like you guys, if you watch Sixers Magic game, Fournier is just, that guy kills the Sixers. Whatever he's the one who finds the stroke against the Sixers. So I guess I'm maybe a little bit biased here, but I think in terms of the level of player, he's even had like the fractionist bit of playoff success. Like that Magic team stole a game and a half off Toronto the year they won the title. When we're looking at this list of guys, not many of them have much to offer in terms of experience, but at least Fournier was considered a big piece of a playoff team that showed some fight as of recently. You know what I mean? Like DeLon Wright has had some playoff success, but he wasn't in nearly the role as Fournier was. And Ellington's kind of the same. George Hill is actually probably the most experienced, but I don't know. George Hill feels like more of a name at this point. Like it feels like every year when I watch him and late in the season, he's just like he's averaging 8.6 points, and then the next year it's 7 points, and then it's 5.6 points, and then it's like he's only playing 12 minutes a game. And I don't know. I think I'm out on George Hill. So
you got a George Hill-esque player in Danny Green already. Like you got your version of George Hill.
A better version of George Hill. Actually, sticking with the Magic. Sticking with the Magic, Max, I'm going to add one more name to this list. Terrence Ross.
That's not a bad name.
If Terrence Ross was on there, I'd go for Terrence. I'm a sucker for Terrence Ross. I would
love
Sixers need a guy like that can just fuck it from deep with no conscience. And I mean, Terrence Ross is absolutely old. He's like,
remember when the Sixers had Corey Brewer and he was the most exciting player on the Sixers for 10 days?
Exactly. That is a perfect analogy. It's a perfect comparison. Just like I need someone who, when you're down 17 in the dog minutes of the third quarter, you're like, you know what? Give this guy 8 shots in 3 minutes, and we'll see what happens from there. Maybe he'll make 3 or 5 from 3, and we're back in. Like Sixers need something like that. They need a spark.
High energy guy too. Very high energy guy.
I love me some T. Ross, but JJ, man. So Fournier, Ellington, DeLon Wright, George Hill, Doug McBuckets, McDermott, and Nemanja Bjelica. What do you feel? And T. Ross.
And I mean, if we're throwing T. Ross in the mix, I think that's the one you go and get. To be honest, and just off the top of the dome, that's just the one that just feels the most correct. But among the list that we said, it's easy to say Evan Fournier because he's probably the best player on this. Not probably, he's the best player on this list. But Evan Fournier commands a lot of minutes. Evan Fournier is a starter level player on any team in the league, and I don't think the Sixers have a spot to carve out for Evan Fournier that makes sense. So you need a player who can still shoot at a high efficiency rating, but doesn't command a lot of minutes. And I think Wayne Ellington does that. Wayne Ellington is having a great year, shooting very efficiently, and doesn't command a whole lot of minutes. Can give you that bench depth, but you won't be struggling to see if Wayne Ellington should be playing down the stretch unless you need some shooting in the game, which he can provide. But I think if we're on the lines of bench depth and how to make the second unit better, like Evan Fournier comes in and buys starter minutes. He comes in and is almost jostling for what Tobias Harris is in his offense right now. And I don't think that's good for anybody involved. I don't think that's how you maximize everybody's strengths like that. But I think Wayne Ellington, there's a spot for this team on Wayne Ellington that you can make out very easily. I think he's a good addition.
Completely agree. Doc Lock, Josh, what are you thinking, man? Fournier, Ellington, Wright, Hill, McDermott, Bjelica, and Terrence Ross.
Yeah, and I like the list. I like the nitty gritty of the role player type, and I don't like agreeing, but I'm gonna go with Wayne Ellington as well because for what you just said, JJ, and when I consider all these names, another thing I consider is what the Sixers would have to give up to get these guys. And I'm right now at this point, I'm in a if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of mindset where I think they got such a solid unit going on. So the least amount of players I can take out of that equation for a trade, the better. Wayne Ellington, the fact that he plays on the Pistons, I feel like that really helps your chances. Pistons, we know how bad the Pistons are. We're talking pick compensation here, maybe a throw-in player right there. So to me, for the compensation that you'd have to give up for Wayne Ellington, plus exactly what you're saying, JJ, this isn't a guy who's going to be demanding starter minutes. This isn't going to be a guy who's going to be hogging the ball. There might be a night where he goes 1 for 5 and you're smacking yourself like, why are you shooting that one, Wayne? But this is a guy who's also shooting 42%, I believe, from behind the arc this season. And yeah, I know it was the Kings game. I don't want to bring up the Kings game again, but you're seeing guys like Terrence Ferguson get some run with the absence of Ben and Joel. And I know he only got like 7 minutes or so. Maxey, kind of, it's been Jekyll and Hyde with him all year. He's not playing the playoffs. It's just Wayne Ellington is the kind of guy that you need to make sure you're not throwing Ferguson or Maxey into your playoff rotation. And exactly what you said, JJ. They need a guy who's kind of go in there, chucks him up, and he can get unconscious one night. Not quite a Will Barton type. I'd say he's scaled down a little bit. But I like Wayne Ellington.
I almost lane. I'll put him in that lane.
What's up?
I said I'll put him in that lane.
I'll put him in that lane, too. I hold Will Barton with a very high respect. Maybe it's the Sixers' jaded claws. I almost said Dougie McBuckets, but I think Furkan is a great Doug McBuckets replacement, as I was saying earlier.
Really quick, I don't know if we're about to move on. I have to say, I'm said DeLon Wright, because my big thing with Wayne Ellington.
DeLon Wright is 1B. DeLon Wright is probably 1B to Wayne Ellington. Like you don't get Wayne Ellington, you get DeLon Wright. That's like the next step. But I think the first.
Go ahead, Banner. I didn't mean to steal your thunder. I'm sorry.
Josh, you said Will Barton. I've been on the Will Barton train for weeks now. Obviously, Will Barton's a guy that would come in and vie for starting minutes with either Seth Curry or Danny Green. So Will Barton's my perfect scenario. Obviously, Terrence Ross, I threw that ad in there because who wouldn't like Terrence Ross? Yeah. But out of this list, I'm going DeLon Wright. And when I say DeLon Wright, that answer was made a little bit tougher this weekend by Shake Milton kind of like living in that mid-range game. He had a great weekend pulling up from the elbow. He did a lot of damage from the mid-range. So that made it a little bit tougher. But when you watch the last game when Maxey and Shake were on the floor, having two ball handlers threw something different at the opponent that they had to account for. It's two different styles of ball handling. And when the play kind of stifled off and it swung around to Shake, and he did his damage in the mid-range game, that tempo switch from that to having Maxey with just a different energy on the ball, that's something that a team has to account for. And Josh, you said it, Tyrese Maxey's not getting minutes in the playoffs. So if I want that same kind of look, I've been saying that they need a secondary ball handler for quite some time now. So if you can go out there, push Shake to a more natural 2, let him regain some efficiency from behind the arc, and then just do some damage from that mid-range, I think adding DeLon Wright would be an incredible pickup because, I mean, Tyrese Maxey's already on his way out of town in that Will Barton trade. But with that being said, we're going to move right on.
There you go.
Oh, boy. This one, I wanted to a quick mention here before we get into our next question. We talked about it beforehand in a little bit of pre-pro. Paul Reed this year. What was Paul Reed? The third round. What pick was Paul Reed?
I don't know.
Like 54.
I'll do some stats and research. Give me a second.
He was the pick after Isaiah Joe. But Paul Reed coming in. Paul Reed today was named the MVP and the Rookie of the Year in the NBA G League. Now, granted, the Blue Coats did get waxed in the championship by the Magic's G League team, but that shouldn't take away from what Paul and Isaiah Joe were able to do. So, big shout out to Paul Reed. And boys, do we see any kind of future in Paul Reed on this team? And I'll throw a little bit of Isaiah Joe love in there too. So, what do we see for this year's non-lottery picks?
No, I am high on Paul Reed. Like I couldn't be more high on Paul Reed, and I'll tell you why. It's because when I watched, and I'm a nerd. I watched a few of these Blue Coats games. You know, it's like 11 o'clock. They're all on ESPNU. I'm over here doing school from my computer. Why not throw on B-Ball Paul, see how he's doing? Now, I went to one G League game before when Zaire Smith was playing. And first of all, G League basketball is it's not that good. Second of all, you could tell that Zaire Smith wasn't that special. Like, he just looked like a good G League player. Watching Isaiah Joe and B-Ball Paul, those guys look far and away better than their competition. I watched the Blue Coats playoff game against Nick Stauskas, his team. Nick Stauskas looked horrible. He looked wash. B-Ball Paul and Isaiah Joe were running circles over Sauce Castillo.
Damn,
so while it's the truth, gentlemen, I went into the game trying to root for our guy Sauce, and it's over for him. But this is positive for us Sixers fans because I really do think Isaiah Joe, B-Ball Paul, this isn't a flash in the pan G League. And I have a player comp for B-Ball Paul, boys. Let me know how you think of this one. Christian Wood. I think B-Ball Paul could be the next coming of Christian Wood. And this time, let's hold on to him and see it fruition here. See it come to fruition here.
I like that.
Not mad at it.
No, not at all. It's good to know. You know what I mean? And is it too early to say that that the Sixers have won the Zaire Smith for Tony Bradley trade?
Tony
Bradley. Does anyone win? Does anyone
Nobody won that.
Dude, build around Tony Bradley. Tony Bradley's giving you all heart out there, boys. Okay, I don't want to hear anything different.
Shout out Puma fam, Zaire Smith.
Yeah.
Don't give me any Tony Bradley slander on this show. I'm not having it.
Really quick.
Someone tell the major publications, Bleacher Report, ESPN, all that. So someone tell them about Paul Reed because I saw a lot of Jalen Green highlights. I saw a lot of Jonathan Kuminga, and I didn't see no Paul Reed highlights, and he won MVP.
Right.
So
that's a great point.
It's a great
someone
point.
Tell them.
Max, are you at something?
I was just gonna say that maybe in the farthest of out scenarios is Mike Scott's kind of on a hot streak in his personal terms. That's not as impressive as it used to be, even though it was never really super impressive. I just want to say that Paul Reed is a guy that, if Mike Scott gets dropped from the rotation and we just need to throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. I mean, that kind of that's a pipe dream. I'm just going to be honest. That's a pipe dream. I would love to see it. It's a bit of a pipe dream this year. But if you're like me and you're like, hey, how could this guy possibly make it to the Sixers in some capacity this year? That's your avenue.
I love that. I do love that. All right, so we're gonna wrap up our main event, sticking with the Sixers. And this one, and there's that old adage that basketball is better when the Knicks are better.
Yeah.
That's a damnable lie. Damnable lie, because the Knicks can suck it, and that is evidenced by this past weekend's Julius Randle. He had another temper tantrum, and I wish I had the soundbite for you. It's honestly ridiculous. I mean, I saw people comparing the Julius Randle shot to force overtime to the Kawhi quadruple doink, and I've never wanted to jump out a window more. It's just. But for those who weren't watching the games, the Knicks took the Sixers to overtime in a 101-100 win for the Sixers. I mean, two of the league's best defensive teams, so it was an absolute grind, of a game. It was very tough, very physical, and I want to toss this to you guys because the Knicks are probably the biggest surprise team of this year in the NBA. There are a couple more very, very nice stories, such as the Hornets and such like that. But the Knicks are the Knicks were bad for a very long time. So I'm going to call them the NBA surprise story this year. But I want to toss it to you guys, and JJ, I'm going to come to you with this one, man. Is the Knicks-Sixers rivalry picking back up? Like, is this where it starts to kind of become a thing again? Because as much as I hate the Knicks, I do love the rivalry. I do love a good rivalry in sports. So if we can, and I'm kind of over that team that wears green. So, I mean, Brad Stevens is the next head coach of Indiana. But moving past that real quick, do we get a new one? Do we get a new rivalry?
I mean, Sixers rivalries, right? First, it's the Celtics, and then if it's not the Celtics, I'm going to go with the Knicks right after that. And the Celtics are kind of humdrum this year, so if there's one to look to, it's the surging Knicks, right? And all you have to look is this past game that they played. You hit it on the head, Banners. It's a grind of a game, very tough, physical, two gritty teams, Philly grit against New York grit, and I think that rivalry is definitely back. You could see a lot of passion, emotion, a lot of jostling, a lot of I don't like you, you don't like me out there on the court. And I mean that's awesome to me. Like that's Philly basketball and New York basketball at its finest. And Philly and New York always, I think, have a little unspoken rivalry because in other sports too, like the Phillies and Yankees, it's not publicized, but they don't really like each other either. You talk about the Flyers and the Rangers, and the Flyers and the Islanders. They don't really like each other either. Like there's this little Philly New York rivalry, and when both teams are good, when both teams are making a comeback, so to speak, their come out party, I think that rivalry definitely gets a little inflated. I love it.
Yeah, I like to. I used to be a bigger Julius Randle fan before he started bitching about the refs. And if we go back and watch that tape, there is a very, very clear push off, and I'm going to say it wasn't on the Sixers. That's all. I'll leave it at that. But Josh, how do you feel about this? The Knicks coming back to relevance and this budding rivalry.
I mean, look, I'm just gonna say yes. The rivalry's coming back because, like you said, Banners, it's more fun. And you know what else is more fun? When you're on the winning side of a rivalry. Show the stat. The classic Ben Simmons has never lost to the New York stat. It's one of the best. It fills my timeline every time, and I'll like every single one of them. It really never gets old to me. And JJ, you were talking about the physicality of that matchup. I think that is key to this rivalry. And I think maybe it's social media, it's the way these games are going, but when you're just jacking up threes, it's not as up close and personal. The way the Knicks play basketball is perfect for a gruff and tough rivalry. As long as Tibbs is there, as long as the Knicks are leaning into this defensive identity, these Knicks Sixers games should be fun, especially if we end up on the winning side of these. But I will say this, the Knicks do have a long way to go to make it competitive because they are a good team. But I see a perennial 8-7 seed right now. I don't see a lot in the sense where this guy could really become something. Like Julius Randle, he's great. Even after yesterday, I do really like Julius Randle, and I do really like Nerlens Noel. I'll always miss you, Nerlens. Wish you were still here.
This is about Julius Randle's ceiling. Would you agree?
Yes, that's exact. That was my point.
It doesn't get much better than this. It doesn't get much better than this.
And he's really good at what he is now, but I don't see where anyone else on this Knicks team, maybe Obi Toppin, I just don't think that it's going to be that close of a rivalry. But if it's going to be the one below the Celtics, yes, it's good. It is good for the Knicks to be better as a Sixers fan, but not that much better.
Well,
right.
For the next
are we out on RJ Barrett?
I've been out on RJ Barrett, not to be honest.
All right. But for the next 4 to 5 years, we have Doc Rivers versus Tom Thibodeau. If that doesn't scream a blue-collar, work-hard rivalry for the next 4 to 5 years, that's beautiful to see.
And Julius Randle will be the perfect guy to just piss off twice a year because maybe he'll get one, but Embiid versus Randle, it's no contest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Max, how do you feel about this?
I mean, rivalries are really as simple as they're only as fun as, unless they're deep rooted. We're talking the classic ones, Michigan, Ohio State, Yankees, Red Sox, all the quintessential classic. When you think of a sport, the first match, you think of maybe the first two. With that being said, a rivalry is only as good as its weakest link. And for the last 20 or so years, that Sixers-Knicks rivalry has been pretty dead. So I'm going to be a little bit more reserved in claiming it all the way back. I don't want to Texas this thing. I think the Celtics are still clearly the number one rival. And I think especially after the last couple of years with our playoff series against them, even going back to the Joel Embiid elbow on Jared Allen, the Nets are clearly our number two rivals. And, especially with the two of us jockeying for the top seed in the East, it's fun. I'll say this. It's definitely more fun to play the Knicks again. The Knicks games were always 104 to 89. You never really needed to watch the Knicks games because you knew they would just, it was a nice rivalry game. It was nice to feel something, but realistically, you weren't tuning in to watch a good game or anything. But I think that'll change. But I think that I'm not going to quite call the Knicks our main rivals yet or close to it.
That's fair. All right. Well, that's gonna do it for our main event. We're gonna move into our second half, rapid fire.
Yeah.
And our first question is going.
Thank you for sparing me, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not. It's like I said, I don't even know what the sport's called, where they put the knives on their feet and they go fast on the slippery stuff, right? It's
competitive barbershopping, I think, is what it's called.
Yeah, it's I don't. No thanks. So our first question in rapid fire is going to be: should we be holding on to the hope, regardless of excuse me, of MVP? Whoa, of Joel Embiid's MVP chances? Yeah, I'm not even going to try it again. You know what the question is, JJ.
Yeah, I think you should be holding on to it. Absolutely. Embiid's not going to miss. We already talked about it. Embiid's not missing the rest of the season. He's not even missing if all goes well, knocks on wood, an extended period of time. You know, he gets reevaluated in a couple weeks, and he could go a game or two after that. So I don't think anyone closes the gap so much that you have to forget about Joel Embiid. And even so, I think Joel Embiid still comes back the front runner to win that award if he continues to do what he's been doing all season. It's definitely still alive. Definitely still alive for Embiid.
Yeah, and I think one of the best reasons I think that it's still alive is there's no definition for MVP. There's been some questionable MVP choices in the past, so there's no set criteria for what makes someone an MVP. I never root for injury. LeBron James is on my fantasy team as well, but I saw that and I got the notification, high ankle sprain, and I went, so it's not over yet. And honestly, Jokic right now is the odds-on favorite everywhere. I think it should be James Harden. I still think Embiid's got a chance. If Kevin Durant was not on the Nets roster, James Harden is going to get talked about for MVP way more. Yeah. And while, yes, Jokic definitely deserves it right now, I don't know. I think it's going to be close, though. I'm holding out hope. Final answer.
I think Embiid's definitely got to still be the front runner when he comes back, especially because the person right after him, LeBron James, also got hurt. So when Embiid comes back,
but I'm still scarred. I'm still scarred from the Rookie of the Year debacle, even though that was 29 games, way less. But he was still clearly the best rookie.
Malcolm Brogdon. Max, how do you feel about
that year? What a shame.
How do you feel about MVP's chances?
I gotta say, I still Josh hit it on the head. The LeBron ankle sprain was the pearly gates swinging wide open because they were all but shut. The Lakers were still cruising. They were still a number one or two seed after the Jazz. Excuse me. So I gotta say, I think that it's crazy because this feels like it's the most wide open it's been in a while. Like even in the last handful of years, it feels like it was a pretty steady 2-horse race in most of the years, whether it was Giannis and Harden or Giannis and LeBron or like Russell Westbrook and Harden. Just the last handful of years, it's been one or two guys clearly above everyone else in the vote. That's the controversial part. Is it person A? Is it person B? Yeah. This year, the fact that Embiid is going to miss probably 7 to 9 games total, which is a larger portion of your season compared to usual, and he might come back as the odds-on favorite. That is just that is unheard of to me, right? Yeah. Like just going through the other 3 guys on the screen. LeBron's hurt. Obviously it'll depend on what happens with his injury and stuff like that. But Jokic, the Nuggets are on the 5th seed. MVPs don't get handed out to people not
in the 5th seed, not in the middle of the pack.
I don't see that happening. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is me looking for James Harden is incredible. I do think that if the Nets roster wasn't as stacked as it was, this conversation would be over, and James Harden would be the front runner for MVP, regardless of the start to his season and all the drama that unfolded in Houston. And quite honestly, we know sports writers are a crotchety bunch. They are petty. They hold grudges. Those kind of things are in the foremost thought process of a lot of these people's voting things. Like, I can't vote for this guy. He was not an MVP in character this year on the basketball court. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, the baseball Hall of Fame.
I truly think we're going to see enough of that where that's enough for it to not be a lock for Harden. And who does that leave you with? That leaves you with the guy who's been one of the most likable personalities in the NBA since his rookie year, a dude who is the clear face of his franchise, playing at the best he ever has been. It's crazy to think, but as of right now, I still think it's Embiid's MVP to lose, right? Talk me out of it.
I think I agree. I agree. To me, if it got handed out right now, it's still Embiid.
Yeah. I think the Sixers playing well, Josh, like you alluded to earlier in the show. I think that might actually hurt his chances. The Sixers playing very well without him, like blowing out the Kings and the Spurs by 30. Like I don't know. I still agree with you guys. It is Embiid's. To me, I think it's Embiid's MVP to lose. But I'd like to monitor how that goes.
It's crazy that I'm saying that, but
exactly. Our second rapid fire question. We're still dancing here. March Madness. We're almost through the second round of games, and I gotta ask you guys: with this being probably the craziest March Madness tournament in my memory, is too many? Are there too many upsets? Anybody? I don't know.
No, I mean that's what makes it so fun. Like
that's what I mean. It's
right.
not called March Go as it should this. It's called March Madness. Like
Go as it should this.
Does anyone think Texas Abilene Christian University has more than 4,000 total staff and students? Like, does anyone want to go over under on that? Because I'm saying under 4,000. I don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna go under.
Texas Abilene Christian. They are one of the biggest universities in the whole country. Texas has satellite campuses eat that school for dinner. You know what I mean? Like that is the beauty of this. This doesn't happen in football.
And that's what I'm saying.
Playoff system is too confusing. It doesn't really allow for this anyway. Like
in so many sports we complain about the playoff of it being so cookie cutter and predictable. We know Team A and Team B are going to go to the chip.
Alabama, Clemson again.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Even the college football playoff where they even try to have some parity. I know there's 3 teams and then there's the rest. But
you can feed Notre Dame to Alabama. You just know it's going to happen.
You know what's going to happen. But in college basketball, you can take a team like Abilene Christian, put them up against Texas of Austin, Max, literally the second or third biggest school in the country, and take them down on a national stage where juniors and seniors who get one opportunity at this thing make a run for the ages. You know what I mean? Like if every lower seed won, it wouldn't diminish the product at all. Like if every game was on paper an upset, it wouldn't. People wouldn't get tired of it. People wouldn't be like, "Oh, I didn't like this." Like this is what you tune into March Madness for, because literally any team can get hot and go and win it. That's the beauty.
Exactly.
Now, I don't want you guys to misconstrue what I'm saying. I love upsets. That's what we watch March Madness for, right? But I feel like this year we're seeing it where, yes, it's impressive that these teams win their first game, but then we saw that North Texas Villanova game yesterday. It was an absolute snoozer. We got this Abilene Christian getting dominated by the 11th seed, UCLA. But there's a double-edged sword. Oral Roberts taking care of business 2 games in a row, beating Florida. So I think we're teetering. I'm not going to say that there's such a thing as too many upsets, but there are some of these teams who win their first game, and then it's so clear that they don't belong, and it makes it even easier for Gonzaga to win the championship. I don't want to see Gonzaga win the championship. I want to see good games. I do want to see upsets, but I don't want to see these teams that upset the first round matchup get blown out.
See, Josh, sometimes you get greedy. You want your cake and eat it too. So if you want good games, pay attention to the upsets. You think when teams are upsetting, those are good games. Those are the good games. What do you mean? What do you mean? I want good games upsets and good games. Like when
I get what Josh is saying. Josh is saying that.
I know what he's saying.
Texas is a perfect example. They blew their load against Purdue. They gave it everything they got to take down that army of 7-5 guys, and they just had nothing left in the tank for Villanova. I get where Josh is coming from.
I get where he's coming from too, but the upset is still the good game.
Yeah,
absolutely.
When a 15 seed beats a 2 seed, unless it's Virginia's upset, they don't get blown out. That game is a 1-point game with a half court heave at the end. That is a good game. That's the madness right there.
And also, I don't know. I like I'm never going to say there's too many upsets. Plus, it gives us media personalities like Sister Jean. Like it's, you know what I mean? It exposes the lesser focused on colleges and lesser known parts of the country to more media coverage. You know what I mean? You know what? Let them have their moment. You know what I mean? It's we're going to forget about this in a couple weeks, and I don't know. I like it. It's fun. Brandon, question in the what was that, Josh?
I was just saying. I saw Brandon Spence made the comment about Oral Roberts and that the green, making the green on Oral Roberts with the little like plus 500 thing there. Woo, we love that.
So this last one I think is going to be fun, and we've talked about it in more kind of in a vacuum with certain sports at certain times. And you know what, Max? I'm going to come to you with this one first.
Please don't. Please don't.
No, all right. You weaseled out of that one, JJ. I'm going to come to you.
I'm getting out ahead of that.
JJ, I'm going to come to you first. What is a rule in sports you'd like to either change or implement? So any sport, any level, that you'd like to either change or implement.
The first one that comes to mind, and I guess it's the one I should go with because it's the first one that comes to mind. Obviously, it's the one I care about the most, is the no DH rule in the NL in baseball. And I may not even need it to be changed. I just need it to be like explained to me. Why just in half of the league can you not do what the other half of the league can do? What is the advantage there? Because I'm a person who doesn't like to see pitchers hit. I'm not such a baseball purist where like I need to see Aaron Nola, who takes literally 10 to 12 at bats a year, get up there and ground out to a lazy ground ball to second base. Like I don't need to see that. I'd rather put someone in there who can hit and have an actual ninth batter. Like I can't, you know what I mean? I just every time it happens, I'm like, why? Like I don't understand this.
All right. The DH rule, Josh. What do you feel?
Low hanging fruit.
Yeah, low hanging fruit. JJ, it's baseball. I'm a baseball purist. If you're getting on the field, you better be able to pick up a bat.
Rules change.
The rule I want to change, it's a little bit extremist here. Let's go to the gridiron and let's go to the defensive side of the ball. The poor defense, they never have an opportunity to score points. That's safety, 2 points. That's not enough. Let's make the safety 4 points. An absolute wild card, a game-changing play. I love the safety, but 2 points doesn't seem like enough for how rare the safety happens.
You get the ball too, though.
That's true.
Right.
Why not? So then a safety and a field goal is equal to a touchdown. It makes the end of games so much crazier. You won't see teams running into their own end zone at the end of games, and just taking safeties. I would love to see the safety get bumped up to 4, make it more exciting and more incentive for the defense because you never see it.
Interesting. Max, do you have time to come up with something?
Yeah, I just didn't want to go first. Honestly, I was just feeling the pressure a little bit too much in the moment.
Wow.
This is definitely recency bias. I gotta say, I don't really like the possession arrow in college basketball. I just don't. I feel like
really?
it's
Interesting.
I feel like it's
good.
That's not bad.
you work so hard for a jump ball, and I don't know. And
yeah.
I get that it's the most efficient and quickest way to do it, especially with the way that the college clock works and everything. I don't know. I wish. The thing is, it's not practical to do a jump ball every time, but like that's kind of what I would want to do. You know what I mean? Because there's so many subjective things that call as a jump ball. It's just like, okay, the ball might just switch possession off that. I don't know.
But Max, I agree because I hate when a team is dependent on that at the end of games.
Mm-hmm.
If they know they have the possession arrow, they're not as worried about a loose ball or someone getting tied up. Like I think it should be a fair fight if someone gets tied up. Like it's literally in a team strategy that it's okay to get tied up because we know we have the possession arrow.
Real quick, I had another idea. I wanted to throw it out there, but I can't take credit for it. Let's go back to the G League. When I was watching the G League, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw a guy step up to the free throw line, take and make one of those free throws, and get 2 points for it. What would you guys think about like if you get fouled on a 3, you have one free throw and you get 3 points. You have one free throw and you get 2 points if it's a 2.
Hard no.
No, definitely not. That's stupid. That's crazy.
The rule that I like that I've actually been a proponent of that Graham Gano brought to the forefront a couple of years ago was on kickoffs. If you can make it through if you can make it through the uprights, count it. Put a point up on the board.
Every kicker could do that now. That would make them move the ball back again.
I wouldn't have been a proponent of it if the Devin Hester age, Andre Hall age, like kickoff rules still applied and they were still a big part of the game. Mm-hmm. But since the NFL has done so much to take away the effectiveness of kickoffs, if you can get me through an upright, like. Coming from a fan of a team that literally I hate the existence of kickers just as a whole. If you can give me one other rule to make them more important to the game, like if you can add 4 to 5 points a game outside of field goals and extra points, all right, yeah, you know what, you earn your check. You know what I mean? Like I get it. So if you can hit that ball from the kickoff, and you can get it through the upright, and you can tack on a point. I'll deal with Dan Bailey's of the world. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
I think it's crazy you mentioned that, because the one that I was going to go with, I just thought this was going to be like too low-hanging fruit. I was going to say we got to go back to onside, like a good onside kick, because fourth and 15 it doesn't do the same thing for me. I don't know what it is. Like I think it's way better than this current onside kick trash that they have in the NFL right now. But this is me being an old school baseball guy like Josh with the DH stuff. For an onside kick, I want to see an actual special teams conversion. Special teams is becoming less and less important with every single year, and just making the onside kick doable. I'm not asking for 20+% conversion clip. They had it at like 12 to 15% before they changed all the onside kick rules. Like, was it like 5-6 years ago at this point? I don't understand what was so wrong with that. If anything, I thought it was still a little bit too inhibitive for the team trying to get the ball back. It's still so predictable. It's the easiest play to counter, other than, a QB kneel, which you don't have to play defense for. There's no easier play to counter than an onside kick. And they move the sliders all the way to, it's basically impossible unless you're lucky enough to be, get a good bounce or have Younghoe Koo as your kicker. And I don't know. That's the old school purist to me. So I guess I should have went with that, because I'm clearly more passionate about it than college basketball, because I only pay attention to college basketball during the tournament.
See, I like those. I like the two that we just talked about, because it gives specialists something to practice. You know what I mean? It gives the kickers something to do besides sit in the team facility and day trade.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? They have to be out there practicing. You know what I mean? But that's whatever. That's our second half. Quick. That's our rapid fire. We're gonna move into tap outs. But before I tell you what my tap out is, I'm gonna tell you how to find us in podcast form.
Bang bang.
And that's through mediums like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Tuner, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us by searching Trust the Process Live, and listen to us if you can't make us if you can't make the live show every Monday night at 7. But boys, who has a tap out for us?
I'll start tapping us out. I got nothing crazy to say, but I wanted to just get on here and apologize to everybody who I know, because I have been inaccessible for the last 3 days. I have been sports guy. I have been complete and total sports guy, watching March Madness, choosing basketball over
Don't
everything.
Apologize for that. Don't ever apologize for that.
I am, because I got to call my grandma, grandpa. I got to say hi to mom. I got to give more time to the lady. You know what I mean? We're all about being YG around here, JJ. This weekend, it was all about basketball. So I'm saying, hey, everyone, I'm sorry. I'm still watching March Madness, but taking a little step away from basketball this week, cooling down. It's time to be a person again.
Anybody else?
I was just gonna, tell everybody to cherish, don't take for granted what you have, because before you know it, you could go to put a load of washing in and your washing machine won't shut. And it's 6 days later. It got fixed today, so as soon as we're done here, that's number one on my agenda. But thank God I had this one last pair of hole in the bottom socks. That's all I'm saying.
There you go. JJ, you got to tap out?
Yeah. I'm normally the last person to get on like popular show waves, and this is example 9,457th of it. But I just started Snowfall. I don't know if you guys ever watched Snowfall on FX. On Hulu.
I need to get to it.
Woo! Woo! God, and how about this for my tap out? Answer one of our viewers, Brendan Spence, again. What are your guys' expectations on the Sixers road trip? It's actually something we were talking about pre-pro really quickly, and just to run through it, it's shaky, baby.
Shaky, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Shaky, baby.
We're chilling.
I'll say real quick, just on that note, I'm not looking for wins and losses. I'm looking for moral victories without
Here we go with the moral victories, man.
Without Embiid!
I'm worried
Here we
about
go with the
wins.
moral victories, man.
LeBronless Lakers, Draymondless Warriors. No excuses for either of those games. No excuses.
That's a good point. Wasn't thinking about that. All right, Max.
Stephless Warriors as well.
So I'm going to start out my tap out.
No excuses for those games. This better be a good road trip.
Yeah, it should be. And I'm not going to be as optimistic as as my predictions on our last West Coast trip when I went 3-1. But I'm going to start out my tap out with, it is now, and I think it's 10 days away from opening day in the MLB, and
almost banner season.
It's almost me season, boys. It's going to be something. JT was scratched from the lineup on Sunday. He's looking good. He's feeling good. He was just a little bit sore from a simulated game, and I threw a baseball for the first time in about a winter yesterday, and let's just say I can understand how JT feels. I'm in nowhere near the physical condition that JT Realmuto is, but I can barely lift my right arm today. So you know what? I get it. You fractured your thumb. You know what? Cool. But we got the Phils to look forward to in about 10 days. I think it's going to be a good year. I could see this being a good year for the Phils. I'm not going to stand here and say they're going to the World Series or anything like that, but I think it's going to be a good year. That's going to be it for us.
Said Phillies going to World Series. Edit it out.
Edit it out. Yeah, of course. We're live here, Max. All right. We don't do any post. That's going to do it for us here on Trust the Process Live. Before we go, again, you can find us on all social media platforms by searching Trust the Process Live. But until next time, we are brought to you by Miami Philly, where something's always new and everything's always fitting. Have a good week, everybody. We'll see you next Monday at 7.
Yeah.